If you've ever felt like you're just stuck in a constant wrestling match with your own thoughts and emotions, well, it might be time to finally drop the rope. Welcome to this explainer. Today we are unpacking a seriously transformative framework from psychologist Stephen C. Hayes. It's called Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, or ACT for short. We're going to break down the core mechanics of exactly how our minds trap us, and more importantly, how we can break free to live a truly meaningful life. Let's get right into it.
Think about this for a second. Pain and suffering are two different states of being. Now, I know that sounds simple, but it completely shifts how we view our internal struggles, right? See, psychological pain is just a normal part of life. We literally all feel it. But suffering? That's different. That happens when we refuse to accept that pain. It's that absolute exhaustion that comes from fighting our natural emotional state.
Section 1. The universality of pain. Why we all struggle with our minds.
Okay, let's establish a really important baseline right off the bat here. If you experience anxiety, depression, guilt, fear, your mind is not broken. I repeat, not broken. It's just an inevitable part of the human condition. But, why are we so prone to this stuff? Well, it's actually because language amplifies our pain way beyond just physical sensations. Think about it. Unlike an animal that only feels pain when it's, say, physically injured, our human minds conjure up pain just by thinking. We dwell on past hurts, we constantly anticipate future struggles, we compare ourselves to others. Our minds are basically time-traveling pain machines.
Section 2. The avoidance trap. How our natural instincts backfire.
So, when you touch a hot stove, your immediate instinct is to pull your hand away, right? It makes total physical sense. But applying that same avoidance instinct internally, that's what actually traps us. The term for this is experiential avoidance. It's the attempt to suppress unpleasant thoughts, emotions, and sensations, which paradoxically just increases their intensity. I mean, if I tell you right now, whatever you do absolutely not think about a pink elephant. What happens? Yep, a giant pink elephant pops right into your head. Forcefully running from anxiety or trying to suppress sadness just feeds it energy and creates this totally exhausting vicious cycle.
And that avoidance, it's almost always driven by something called cognitive fusion. This happens when we treat our thoughts as absolute literal truths, rather than just temporary mental events. Like if you're fused with the thought, "I'm going to fail," you don't just see it as a string of words in your head. You see it as a guaranteed reality, and this creates severe behavioral rigidity. You stop taking risks, you shrink your life, all because you're letting random mental chatter dictate every single move you make.
Section 3. Detaching from your thoughts. The practical toolkit of cognitive diffusion.
So here's the crucial point. If fusion is the problem, defusion is the cure. And look, the goal here is not to stop thinking, because that's literally impossible, but to step back and observe the process of thinking. A fantastic way to practice this is the leaves on a stream visualization. Just imagine you're sitting beside a gently flowing stream. When a difficult thought pops up, just notice it. Then imagine placing that thought on a leaf and simply watch it float down the stream. You aren't fighting the thought, you're just creating psychological distance, recognizing it as a passing event, not a permanent reality.
You can actually turn this into a really actionable, everyday toolkit. First up, try labeling your thoughts. Instead of saying, "I am a failure," try saying, "I'm having the thought that I am a failure." See the difference? It instantly creates distance. Second technique, repeat a distressing word rapidly out loud until it just turns into a meaningless sound. And third, my personal favorite, speak your difficult thoughts in a silly voice, like a cartoon character. I know, it sounds totally ridiculous, but it dramatically strips the emotional weight and the literal meaning right away from those thoughts. It reveals them for what they really are, just words.
Section 4. Mindfulness and acceptance. Making room for your experiences.
All of those diffusion exercises we just talked about, they build the essential foundation for mindfulness, which is this diffused, non-attached, deliberate awareness of the present moment. But to truly be mindful, we have to stop fighting. Just look at the stark contrast here. Avoidance fights discomfort, which ultimately just narrows your life choices. Acceptance, on the other hand, makes room for discomfort, which actually opens up possibilities. Now, let's be clear, acceptance does not mean you like the pain. It simply means recognizing that fighting it is what's causing you more suffering. Making room for uncomfortable feelings actually frees up your energy for the things that really matter.
Okay, try this metaphor. Imagine your life is a bus, and you are the driver. Your difficult experiences, your memories, your anxieties, they're all unruly passengers sitting in the back. If you stop the bus to argue with them, or worse, if you let them grab the wheel just to avoid driving near places that make them loud, well, you stop moving forward.
Acceptance is realizing that, hey, you can't kick these passengers off the bus, but you absolutely can keep your hands firmly on the steering wheel. You can keep driving your life in the right direction even with those unwanted feelings along for the ride.
Section 5. Acting on your values. Choosing your meaningful life direction.
Once you finally stop exhausting yourself by fighting those unruly passengers in your mind, you suddenly have the energy to actually live. And in ACT, living means taking action that's fully aligned with your values. But we have to make a really clear distinction here between values and goals. Goals are specific, achievable milestones, like getting a degree or buying a house. You check them off. Values, though, those are ongoing, lifelong directions. You can never perfectly complete being a loving partner or a curious learner. Values act as your internal compass. They give your life continuous meaning, regardless of the specific goals you might hit or miss along the way.
So how exactly do you find those values? Well, you can start by asking yourself a heavy but incredibly clarifying question. What would you want said at your funeral? Seriously, when all is said and done, what do you want your life to have stood for? Do you want to be remembered for how successfully you avoided anxiety? Or do you want to be remembered for being courageous, compassionate, and fully present? Asking this instantly cuts right through the noise. It helps you zero in on your core values across your relationships, your career, and your own personal growth.
Once you actually know your values, it is time for committed action. Break those large, values-based goals down into small, manageable steps and create specific action plans. But listen, here's the absolute most crucial part of this entire framework. You have to mindfully address barriers and act consistently even when psychological resistance pops up. Because it will. Your mind's chatter is going to try to deter you. The anxiety will absolutely flare up. Setbacks are a given. But armed with defusion and acceptance, you take those feelings right along with you and you take action anyway.
Which brings us to this incredibly powerful, kind of paradoxical truth from the text. If you aren't willing to have it, you will. Think about that. If you aren't willing to have anxiety, you're just going to have anxiety about your anxiety. Your life will shrink until the avoidance itself becomes your deepest source of suffering. It is time to drop the struggle, guys, and just make room for your human experience. So, as you step back into your day and put your hands firmly back on the wheel of your bus, what uncomfortable feelings are you finally willing to accept in order to live a life you truly value?